Hello, welcome to another weekly social media roundup with my better compatriot with me. So I'm pointing the wrong way. You over this way?
I'm this way.
Luann. So yes, welcome. Thanks again for doing this. Hi, Louise. Welcome. Yeah, feel free to use the chat as everyone does all the time so successfully. What I'm going to do actually, and Luann, you can do the same. I'm going to pop in my LinkedIn if anyone wants to connect. Here's my LinkedIn. So everyone else, feel free to share LinkedIn that's connected with each other. We all have a shared interest in social media. We can all learn from each other. So yeah, the chat always is fabulous, buzzy. So let's see if we can do that. Brilliant. We've got fantastic numbers on already. So let's dive into it straight away. So let's go ahead and start sharing, and yeah, let's have a bit of fun. Right then, can you see that okay, Luann?
Yes, I can. Yep. It's like a second delay. But yeah, everyone, thank you so much for joining us and letting us know that you're here. It means that we're not just talking to ourselves.
Exactly, even though we probably would talk to ourselves forever about this kind of subject matter. So Luann, do you want to do a quick intro?
Yeah, good afternoon. Different time this session, but good afternoon. Thank you for watching. My name is Luann Wise. I am an independent marketer. Social media is my thing, mainly in B2B. I'm based in the Cotswolds, and it's nice and sunny today for a change.
Oh, I'm a bit jealous. Yeah, it's raining here in sunny Reading. Oh, the glamour. I'm Andy from Content Cal, but most of you probably knew that already. So let's go into it. There's a lot to get through, as there always is. We're going to do our very best. I'm going to set my timer because trying to keep us on time is always the hardest thing with this. So let's do it. Right.
So typically British, isn't it? Sorry if you're not from the UK. We have to talk about the weather when we start. We're putting the weather in.
Very true. So I saw this slide and I wanted to start it with this because I absolutely loved it, because this was actually from one of a technology company that's just filing to go public, put this slide in their pitch deck to investors. And I really liked it, to be honest. So I stole it. I wanted to share it with everyone. So it's a really nice graphic to represent what a balanced content strategy looks like and how paid advertisement, or like your Facebook ads, for example, fit into your broader content mix. The middle bit being social media and PR, and the kind of longer term bit being your content and SEO. So on the left hand side, we've got like potential traffic from less to more. And on the kind of bottom axis, we've got like short term to long term. Ultimately, what takes time to yield, but ultimately has the biggest growth potential. And it's really nice visualizing it from this perspective so that we can think about how we phase our strategy. We're not expecting like social media to grow exponentially straight out of the gate. It does need time to grow and nurture, but ultimately yields fantastic results over the long term. But I really like that slide. It's a really nice representation of it, and also sometimes good to show to either clients or your boss that these things, content marketing takes a long time to mature, but the opportunity within it is immense. Anything to add on that, Luann?
I think what this is really showing, and we know this if any of us are working in this field, which I assume you are if you're watching, is that social media isn't just a small silo that just sits in one box or one corner of an office or someone's job role, that it is so wide and so varied and starts to encompass so many other things. You know, social media is one part of it, but we need content for social media, and content drives website traffic, and we need paid and organic and things as well. So it just, it seems like this monster sometimes gets bigger and bigger. So I love that this slide kind of gives some context to it.
Yeah, brilliantly put. So if you saw the post I put out on LinkedIn last week about social media platform growth, this was it. So it's kind of top 8 platforms. For some reason, I don't know why YouTube wasn't included in this data, because YouTube's absolutely massive, but we're going to cover that in a second. Kind of top 8 platforms in terms of monthly active users and its growth over the last 2 years. Monthly actives are, as we all know, the most important metric to measure social media platforms by, because this is the people that log in every single month. So significant growth across all of them, as we'd expect. I want to call out 3 in the middle: TikTok, Pinterest, and Reddit, all growing at over 30%. And whilst we're going to cover Pinterest and TikTok as we go through this session, because we start with trends and then we go into the platform specific updates. But one thing I want to call out and put a bit of a spotlight on is Reddit. So for some of our kind of US colleagues that we might well have on this session right now, Reddit will be a fairly kind of known quantity, but for us in the UK, it doesn't really have the level of adoption it has specifically in the US, actually. And for me, I think it's an interesting thing, because Reddit seems to be growing continually, and at 30% growth, right? Just go back to those numbers. The numbers are absolutely massive. And how much quicker that's grown than something like Twitter or LinkedIn, but it doesn't really get a shout in people's consideration of a strategy. For me, I'm interested in your views on this as well, Luann, and anyone in the chat, anyone's views and experiences of Reddit. For me personally, and for Content Cal's purposes, we use it mostly for research, because the conversations that happen on Reddit are absolutely brilliant. Within the subreddits, basically little communities around content marketing and social media, they're brilliant places of really thoughtful conversation. So I find a lot of time to get like good research and understanding out of it. But I don't know, Luann, do you have any experiences of Reddit reviews?
I'm not a big Reddit user, but you're absolutely right. If I was to, be searching, doing research, that's where I would go. Interestingly, and maybe it's just his nature, but the only big Reddit user I know is my 13-year-old stepson, who loves it for tech news and gets really excited when he gets involved in a conversation and tells me how much engagement. So I see it as he loves it for that purpose. But I also see on there what a big community it is. Someone's just put the communities inside, that it's really supportive and adds value all the time. So yeah, a lot of love for Reddit coming through.
Love it. That's great to hear, because often I don't hear it being spoken about that much. So yeah, brilliant. It's great to hear others are using it. So let's look at some broader trends. There's 4 of them. This isn't, I don't think this will be a surprise to anyone, right? So the way that the social media demographics are changing is significant. And right, if you look at, this is US specific data, but it's a quite similar demographic split within the UK as well, about the percentage of the population that are 50 plus, and the way that the last year has driven a much kind of healthier balance of social media. It's not just for 20 and 30-year-olds, it's across a broader spectrum. And which is a really interesting statistic about like the 66% increase in discovering new products via social media in the last 4 years for this demographic, which is fascinating. And it makes social media more of a kind of ubiquitous platform for any business marketing products and services. So yeah, really important update. Thoughts on that, Luann?
I think as a marketer, you always look for the stats that you want to support your arguments when you're presenting plans and other things. And these stats absolutely do it. And we've talked about this on previous sessions of all it makes me want to go is where have they switched from, or are they now still using what they did before, but is social media an add-on? And what products and services. And I would expect, that's the last 4 years stat. I would bet a huge amount of money that significantly increased over the last 12 months because of not having so much access to some traditional media as well. But it's good. And I know that we also had the conversation last month of, what age group are in this world of social media. We're not all 20-year-olds doing this. So it's good to know that there is an older audience using social media for huge amounts of value as well.
Definitely. So then we go from shifting demographics to the future of VR and AR. The funny thing about this is that, because often these two kind of acronyms are just thrown about, a bit of VR and AR. Fundamentally, they're very different things. Virtual reality is something that many businesses are way off in the distance, right? And there's a significant opportunity around virtual reality, which is a full immersive experience. But we're not going to talk about that now, because none of us really know the shape that's going to take. But augmented reality is a very different thing. And that is something that is absolutely at our fingertips. And we all use every single day, pretty much, whether it's, putting funny faces or doing a cat face on like, Facebook Messenger or whatever. We interact with augmented reality continually. And you'll see some massive statistics around this. But fundamentally, as we'll go on and see some of the updates, particularly around Pinterest and Snapchat, the way that they're pushing towards augmented reality is really significant and has some really interesting directional kind of movements for social media channels. So we're going to talk about that more, but augmented reality is going to be a big one for social. But
yeah, and for me, it's that top one about visual learning and how people learn as well. And that if we can make it more interesting and immersive, we know that learning is more likely to stick that way as well.
Exactly that. So then kind of augmented reality plays a huge part in the way that people are going to be buying products online. And we talk about this all the time, so I'm not going to dwell too much on this, but I mean, the statistics are absolutely massive. 55% of people bought products through social media. 87% can claim social media helped them make a decision. Social media is going kind of full cycle, full kind of 360 approach on how people discover, evaluate, and purchase products on social, and it's changing massively. All the way through, like being able to discover something on whatever platform that might be, try something on using augmented reality, and then be able to purchase that product through Facebook and Instagram Shop, for example. The power of this is, we're only at the tip of the iceberg here, but I'm conscious I waffle on about this all the time, every single month. So I'm not going to go into too much detail unless you want to add anything else on top of that one, Luann.
I'm a shopper and buying through social media, so I think, you know, we don't need to talk anymore about shopping. Yeah, let's talk about video.
Video, yes. I mean, like, video is still growing. I mean, this is the kind of fourth trend. You know, I don't think this is a huge surprise to anyone. You can read these statistics, absolutely massive, right? So YouTube should absolutely play a significant part of anyone's social media strategy, as far as I'm concerned. The stat I love here, like 84% bought a company's product after seeing one of their videos. To be honest, at Content Cal, we can really see that netting out. The amount of views on our YouTube content is absolutely massive. I care less about our total number of subscribers, but total number of watches on our YouTube content, because people want to have all the information at their fingertips to be able to make a decision where they discovered something, where they're evaluating it, and how to purchase it. So we found YouTube to be an absolute massively significant player as part of our strategy, and these kind of numbers bear it out. There's one part of these statistics which I've taken from Social Media Today. One of these statistics I don't agree with, however, and always open for discussion on this, is like the average person's attention span is 8 seconds. I don't believe that for a minute. You know, it doesn't matter what age demographic, people are spent hours binging on a Netflix series or box set or whatever. So it's not 8 seconds. It's just a fact we've got more content than we know what to do with. So that's kind of flawed data, I would say. That's my view on it. So, Luann, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, hopefully people have been with us for nearly 15 minutes, so we've debunked that from that point of view. But I think the point of this is almost that you need to engage people. So if you're looking at, you know, particularly mobile first, it's all about going for that fun-stopping moment and how can we stop people scrolling past. So it probably is just a few seconds to get the attention, but I don't think that once you've got it, you're going to lose it that quickly.
Exactly. So there's kind of an interesting statistic around time length here. So I wouldn't take that as like written in stone, but some of this data is quite useful to evaluate as to how you're producing some of your content. So, but like just talking about YouTube, bit of spotlight on it. Yeah, they're now at 2.3 billion. When we started doing these sessions, actually, when we did November session, so what's that, 4 months ago, they were at 2 billion. Wow. So significant growth. It really is absolutely massive. So they're growing quicker than Facebook. Facebook still have the predominant share at 2.7 billion, but YouTube are well on it. So, right, you get a break from my voice now. So we get to hear from Luann. So over to you. Let's talk about Facebook.
What's new? So yeah, we're going to go through the social media platforms now and talk about what's happened in the last month. But we've got some spotlight stats because we like stats to start. I love this first one. 10 minutes is the average time spent per day on Facebook. I'm well above average on this one, but maybe on the app versus the desktop. But it does show, and I know we've looked at other stats before, you know, how many social media users are on Facebook. It does have the most monthly active users. Doesn't mean that it's necessarily your target audience that are there, but probably they're there at some point, if not during the working day, then they're in their downtime as well. But I think the big stat here, and this is what we've seen growth significantly over the last 12 months, is how Facebook have been supporting small businesses, but just how many businesses have got Facebook pages as well, whether it's for e-commerce, for talking about their products, starting groups, building communities. You know, it really is a really good place for small businesses to have a presence. And e-commerce, you know, we have seen again over the last 12 months and from all the e-commerce stats that we share in these slide decks about how important social media is in terms of driving purchase, but how Facebook and Instagram, and we're going to talk about Twitter later on, how there is increasingly more features that will help people shop straight from the apps as well. So maybe that is part in response to lockdowns and Facebook trying to help small businesses by making it easier for them to sell online without having big expensive websites as well. But it's great that we've now got this shop feature in the UK. Groups, I think I've thought for a long time that groups are the biggest value for Facebook, aside for keeping up with your friends and family. But from a business point of view, is to go and find groups of like-minded people, whether you're in there to find your target audience, whether you're in there to talk to your peers, ask questions, share knowledge, look for opportunities. And Facebook, again, they're always adding new features, but now they are adding even more for groups. And I think Q&As for group members is just a really nice, simple way to make them even more interactive than the kind of question threads that are going on in them.
Definitely agree with that.
But the big thing, and we're seeing this across the platforms as well, we'll talk about this for several of them today, is monetization. They need to make money, we need to make money if we're using them, and they are giving us more opportunities to do that as well. What's this stat? From 2019 to 2020, the number of content creators earning the equivalent of $10,000 per month grew 88%. Content creators earning £1,000 per month grew 94%. This is a place where people are earning money, but the platforms are giving us the opportunity to do that as well now, which I think is great.
Yeah, there's some really interesting directions that Facebook are going in this, and I think like monetization is a key word for Facebook at the moment, not just with Facebook Shop that Luann you already mentioned, but in terms of what they're doing for creators as well. So yeah, I want to share 4 things actually. So ability to reward creators with stars. Essentially, these stars are things that you can purchase and then give to creators, which obviously manifest as money. It's kind of like a digital currency, if you will. So there's creators doing a Facebook Live, of which people can, reward the people that they follow with these stars. And similar to this, people can purchase virtual gifts for these content creators. So we can see this, video gamer going live and streaming what they're doing, and others kind of interacting and buying virtual gifts. And it's a really interesting transition because I speak a lot about content and commerce, but I usually think about that through the lens of like creating commerce with like shoppable links and people can go to your shop and buy that product. But this is the actual monetization of your content itself. And I think this is going to be an interesting trend we'll see as we go through all of these updates over the next kind of 15, 20 minutes or so. We're going to see a big shift towards kind of more monetized content, private communities, that kind of thing. So it's a very interesting angle.
And here's another monetized option, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So the paid online events rolling out to more markets, they rolled that out to the UK first in October, I think it was last year. So it's still a fairly new thing, but allows people, as the name suggests, to run events, but charge like a ticket price to do these events. So if you're thinking about it, like imagine that you were kind of a baker, if you will, and you wanted to monetize your content in some way, rather than just monetizing your products, which you could sell for a Facebook shop. So if you're baking and making brownies, I've got that in my head because that's what I'm making downstairs. I can't get it out of my mind. It smells amazing in my house at the moment. So rather than baking those goods and selling on your Facebook shop, which you could do, but also you could kind of have like a masterclass of baking, for example, of which you could charge people to attend those events, or you could be running a Facebook Live of which people could kind of gift you with stars like we've just been speaking about. Really interesting angles for content. And the final thing before I hand it back to you is like and we don't usually talk about stuff in test, but this one is too interesting not to share, which is they're launching a publishing tool for writers. We're going to talk more about this as we go on, but I don't know if you're familiar with tools like Substack, which is like a newsletter platform that allows people that write content. So lots of journalists are on there, write content, and basically have people subscribe to that newsletter. We're seeing that become a big thing across social media platforms, and Facebook are getting in on the action. So they're really focusing in on like how people can monetize certain communities. I find that a really fascinating trend, actually.
And I think also because of the trend that people are increasingly using social media as their news source. So it's kind of balancing the two, isn't it? If people are going to social media to look for news, we'll allow more people the opportunity to write news, and not necessarily just from the big publishing houses, but from the journalists and the citizen journalists that are out there.
Exactly. And this is what they're launching here is partially in response to the debacle that happened with Australian news outlets, last month or the month before. But yeah. So interesting, that one. Sorry, back to you, Luann.
Yeah, no, the Australia thing did get resolved. They did come to an agreement. And I think that happened in the time of us even doing a presentation. Going back to groups, and in part, this whole ongoing challenge that social media platforms have, not just social media platforms, but around misinformation and community management as well. And again, they're giving groups more options. They will be inflicting penalties for rule-breaking groups. It means that group managers have to manage their groups a bit better sometimes if there's things that are violating community standards. So it's great for a group manager, but also great for LinkedIn, Facebook as a community, that there are these standards. They are trying to battle this ongoing fake news, misinformation, and giving features for that all the time. And this presentation is going to be full of a few bits of this. Audio rooms are coming to Facebook. We could easily have predicted this with the rapid increase of Clubhouse over the last few months, which is still effectively in beta testing, because it's invite only. It's only on Apple at the moment. It would be no surprise that the other platforms are looking to see how they can integrate this new trend. So they're coming. I don't think we've got any timings on where they're coming, but it won't be long.
No, definitely not.
So that was Facebook. Let's do Instagram. Another spotlight on Instagram. 62% of users log in at least once a day. I think I'm probably about average when it comes to Instagram users. And we know as well that Instagram, even though there's lots of people using Instagram and posting their own photos on there. I was delighted yesterday that I actually had something happening. I had some deer in my garden, so that I was, the first thing you think was, I've got something to post on Instagram today. But it's not just about personal, holidays and when we can go out again on Instagram. It is a huge place for businesses as well, talking about their products, their services, the behind the scenes, the shoppable activity. People are buying, so it's very commercial place as well. So that's a lot of clicks on commercial posts every month. Don't know whether I'm surprised by that last stat of US adults never heard of it. It'd be interesting again to see what demographic age group perhaps that is. And live, video, despite the increase in audio, video is not going away. Live video is not going away. Live rooms, so this is on Instagram. More than one person will be able to go live in a room, have chats, have conversations, engage. I think this is a great idea to introduce.
Yeah, I love this for the nature of like a collaborative approach to social. Get more people in a room, be able to kind of share what you're doing with a wider audience. Because if there's 4 people talking about a certain thing within one of these live rooms, that means kind of 4 times everyone's network being notified of this live room. A fantastic way of increasing like the reach of your content and the exposure of your own brand, for example. Yeah, I love this collaborative approach. So yeah. This was brand new. It's only about 2 weeks old, so it should be available for everyone.
And Instagram Lite probably doesn't affect us too much here in the UK, but I know that there are many countries that don't have the broadband and the internet access that we do, so that there is lighter versions of these apps. It's a while ago now, but when I was last at Facebook HQ, they were telling us that actually in-house they have what they call 2G Tuesdays, so that they completely, apart from for visitors, because it would upset them, they completely dial down their internet access for all the developers and how they're working to ensure that anyone who's using these apps, not on the high speeds that we might be used to, still have a version so that they can be making the most of these opportunities and staying connected and building communities as well.
That's so interesting. That's such a good idea.
Yeah. Not if you work there. Not if you work there. I don't think the staff enjoyed it. Visitors still had great visitor access, but the staff Tuesdays it was completely wound down.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
Instagram for kids. Anyone who's got kids knows that they probably, some of them want to be on social media, some are quite anti it. I think it's different for different apps as well, but many of them want to use it because their friends are. I think it's not just Instagram that are working on a kids version. I think Facebook are going to go down this route as well. But the big feature I did see last week was that for teenagers who are using Instagram, because 13 is the age that they should be joining or can be joining these apps, is that they can't receive DMs from adults that they're not following, which I think is a good safety feature to have.
Definitely.
Yeah. And the last one, this is our last one on Instagram, is story drafts are coming. This was just shared in the last few days, actually. And I'm in two minds about this, because I think the very benefit of stories and the fact that they disappear in 24 hours is that they are quite in the moment stuff. So probably, do they need drafting? Do they need editing? Do they need refining too much? Perhaps not sometimes, but I know that if they are branded content and you're doing it for an organization, you may want to kind of be prepping things and questions and your swipes and your polls and your stickers. So being able to actually do that on the app and save it as a draft is probably going to be useful to some.
Yeah, exactly. And I actually heard earlier today, just anecdotally from one other user, that they saw for the first time they're able today to save their reel to a draft as well. So it's quite nice when you're kind of creating content in the moment, you haven't quite finished it. So it just provides a bit more creative option as well. So yeah, that's quite a good move. Yes, LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, my favorite one. Not too many stats this month, not too many changes on LinkedIn. These stats are interesting because for me, they kind of look like the perception of LinkedIn that it's all about jobs and a recruitment site. And of course, it's so much more than that. 55 job applications every second, it is a huge resource for jobs and recruiters and job seekers as well. 50% of people with a college degree or higher use it. Again, I work with a number of universities and do quite a lot of student talks throughout the year as well. And, students are actively encouraged to be setting themselves up on LinkedIn quite early on in their careers, from when they're looking for placements, when they're looking for support with their dissertations, internships, first jobs as well. So I think it's a really good opportunity to hit that demographic with it as well. But the main change, and again, LinkedIn are adding more and more to this area of my company and additional information you can put on your company page. Now, my stance on this is that you should have a company page, even if you're a business of one. And if you're a business of one or more with your company page, just make sure that you fill in all the information, all the options, all the areas that are there, because people may search by company. But predominantly, my argument on LinkedIn is that people do business with people, they connect with people. If I think of Content Cal, I think of Andy. I don't know many of your colleagues. So my connection and my content and our shares would be with you as an individual, not necessarily as the organization. So I think it's great that LinkedIn are giving some more features around this area, allowing people to build up their company presence. But for me, it's still about your personal profiles and your one-to-one conversations.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I like this as an opportunity of, like, in this My Company tab, where all of the content related to your audience, so related to your employees rather, will be kind of aggregated into one place, which is so nice to see everything that your organization is saying about your brand, be able to reuse and repurpose that, because we all know, as you said, Luann, like the kind of ambassadorial relationship of your employees on social is going to be such an important thing moving forward. Yeah. So yeah, great points.
Yeah, it's a hub. Should we do Twitter, and then I'm going to dive into the live chat after we've done this one. Twitter, some spotlight stats on this one. 63% of Twitter users are aged between 35 and 65. So slightly older than we probably expect on the other platforms we're talking about, like Instagram, and when we come on to TikTok. 10 million page books is a day's worth of tweet. That's a lot. It's fast, isn't it? Twitter, despite there not being events, so many events going on in the world, there is still a lot of content on Twitter. Some positive, some not quite so positive, but it's still the first place to go for news and what's happening in the moment. And really interesting and fits with everything else that we keep saying, kind of going backwards and forwards. Video, even important on Twitter and its fast nature. It's about getting engagement. So that goldfish moment, a video in the feed as people are scrolling past it, that's going to grab you. And if it's interesting enough in the first few seconds, people will keep watching it. Again, each of these platforms, not any of them are really doing anything really unique, are they? They're all kind of managing the same features. Twitter bought, we talked about this last month, bought Review as a newsletter tool. It's now quite easy to find actually within the app. I haven't started using it yet, but it's interesting. Lots of people are talking about newsletters, and it's going to be integrated within Twitter. So I think that's increasingly important. Have you used it yet?
Not yet, but it's available now.
Yeah.
So I've played around with Review. It's a good platform. I mean, you create a newsletter and get subscriptions. It's not very complex, but yeah, it's just really interesting how they're all going down this same route at the moment. So it's interesting how all social media networks are looking at each other and they're kind of moving in the same direction. I find it fascinating, but actually Twitter were quite far ahead of this one. So yeah, there seems to be a bit of a kind of rejuvenation inside the product team at Twitter at the moment.
I'm just not sure whether people who have newsletters already in a email marketing software are going to shift to a social media platform because they've already got their email community. And I know that I would be reluctant because my email addresses are a huge asset to my business. And if I was to build newsletters on these other platforms, I don't believe that you always get the data that you have the ownership of in the same way that you would, the holy grail of having the emails.
Yeah, it's definitely an area of consideration actually. So we'll think about that more because there'll be a few things we'll discuss about newsletters as we go on. But yeah, it's a really valid concern, definitely.
And again, monetization. We've got a couple of monetization features. I think we talked about this has just been talked about when we did our last monthly update. This idea of having super follows and super followers and charging people and having this extra group on Twitter. Anything? Super follows?
I think it's very interesting actually. It's just like you can start to make a very clear distinction between certain, if you're an artist, for example, because obviously in this example, right, it's quite challenging to think, how do you use social media? And the same for anyone giving away expertise. It's like, at what point do you stop giving away stuff for free for the name of content and audience growth and you start wanting to charge for it? I think having this kind of subscription element does help answer that to a degree. So yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting to see how it grows. But this whole kind of private community, that whole thing is just, it's definitely a thing. So I'm interested to see what happens with it.
You're definitely right. There's more new features and testing being talked about on Twitter than I think ever before. So I think that's an interesting one to watch. And I can't remember the value, but I think Jack Dorsey's first tweet sold for something ridiculous over the last few days, like ridiculous.
It's insane. Yeah, I was north of $2 million, wasn't it? Yeah, crazy. Anyway,
someone said $2.9 million. So there's an aspiration. Let's keep talking about monetization again. Just as the other platforms, probably further behind on this one, but Twitter are testing some e-commerce features, which I think will be interesting as and when that rolls out. How people embrace that, perhaps even what kind of e-commerce is on Twitter and whether that's any different because whether it will be the retail, the really visual stuff, or perhaps we'll get some B2B e-commerce going on and service provisions.
It's very interesting that. Spaces.
What do you think of Spaces?
I mean, it's okay. We've run a first couple of audio spaces. It's hard to really be too upbeat about it because it is like, it's like a telephone conference, right? It's just having a load of people on the phone. So there's definitely value in it. We'll talk more about kind of audio first social as we go on, but I'm personally quite excited about Twitter's approach to it, especially this Spaces tab, because the thing that I thought was missing was like, you can have an audio space and you can have your kind of live space, like you and I could have a chat and other people could listen in, just like we're doing now, but in an audio space. But what I like about this Spaces tab is that this will allow for much better discovery, because obviously Clubhouse main benefit is the fact that you could be like, oh, I want to find out more about content marketing or cooking or whatever. You can just find the rooms you want to go into and just go in there. You couldn't do that with Spaces so far in the test, but this looks like what they're going to be doing. This will kind of answer that, so you can find those spaces that are interesting for you and go into there. So yeah, that will be significant, and that will very much change my perception of it from to, oh, perfect, this is what I want. Yeah,
maybe even another must go to app during the day.
Definitely that.
What else have we got? We're nearly done on Twitter. This one I thought was really, really interesting. Testing the ability to watch YouTube videos in feed. I know that there's one of these conversations that goes around, and I don't know whether it's true or not, but it's always a conversation about apps. Platforms don't like you leaving the app. You know, before they all had native video, you would be posting your video on YouTube and posting the YouTube link on social media. Then they all added it natively, and you know, the conversations were, we don't like you to go outside and leave our app. Whether that's true or not, I've not seen it either way in the stats. But I love this option of actually, maybe this is going to change it all again, about being actually able to watch things within the feed.
Yeah, I love this. And when we think about the stat you mentioned earlier about like videos driving 10 times more engagement on Twitter, because being able to watch a YouTube video in feed is so good. It means we don't have to worry too much about like natively producing a 2-minute 20 video for Twitter. We can use the video that we created on YouTube, and it will play natively in it rather than having to link someone else out to it. So that's a really good update, definitely. But yeah, well, I'll take this one very quickly. So Audio Spaces launching April. Not much more to say about that.
Someone's asked that question, so you've answered it. So brilliant.
There you go. So yeah, next month, rumor has it it's coming out next month. So it's been in beta for a while. It's already available on Android. I'm personally really excited about it. You know, Clubhouse is growing well. We're going to talk about Clubhouse in a bit. But ultimately, I think the bigger opportunity currently sits with Twitter, because they're ahead of the other networks as well. So yeah, we'll talk more about this as we go on, but a very interesting space. But I think one thing just to kind of finish off on Twitter actually is like the kind of products that they're taking on with all of these updates. And this is usually, we don't talk much about Twitter. Well, for the last 3 months, we haven't done much. But like taking on Clubhouse, they're taking on Substack, which is that newsletter platform that I spoke about. And it's definitely worthwhile everyone having a bit of awareness of Substack, because that's growing really well. It's not a social media platform, but it's definitely very interesting. And then Patreon, which you might be familiar with, which is, you know, subscription only. Subscription only kind of network really, that allows people just to subscribe to someone to get exclusive content. All of those kind of things are absolutely trends at the moment. So Twitter's trying to jump on every one of them. I don't know if you have any further kind of thoughts and narrative around that, Luann.
I hadn't really heard of Substack until a couple of weeks ago, if I'm honest, and this whole, this bigger conversation around newsletters. But I've been watching some talks. South by Southwest was online last week. I was supposed to go last year, so I got a ticket to the virtual version this year. And there was lots of talks around newsletters, newsrooms, subscription, journalism, how you communicate with people. And absolutely, they were all huge advocates of Substack. And were listing lots of newsletter options that they like. So I've suddenly, in the last couple of weeks, subscribed to a load of new newsletters that they were recommending, and I'm expecting those to come through. So it's definitely very much in the US right now. So usually it means that it will be with us very soon. Exactly.
I'm with you on that. So, right. Well, I'm going to fire the kind of that's definitely the lion's share of it done. So I'm going to fire through a few. So Pinterest. This is one of the fast growing ones that we spoke about earlier. What I find particularly useful is that Pinterest has a very clear demographic, as you can see here, more of a clear demographic than any other platform. We often talk about that though. But that stat on the right hand side, 77% of users find new products when browsing Pinterest. There is a different level of intent when people go to Pinterest. And that intent point is a really important thing to think about. Because when people want to go to Pinterest, they're going there to discover something new, not like be entertained necessarily. So that's a really important point to mention or think about when you're thinking about this as a platform for you. Now, this is entitled Updates to the Trend Tool, which makes it sound like I knew there was a trend tool anyway. I found this bit of research and I was like, oh, I didn't know this existed. And for someone like me who loves geeking out in some data and loves a chart, this is just brilliant. And I think everyone else will love this. You'll find it just by doing trends.pinterest.com, and it will tell you all of the trends, and you can look at the particular location that's relevant. Brilliant thing to see the things that are going on. And here's like a travel example, because I pulled out kind of travel when I was looking at this, and it gives you some really specific stuff related to like travel personas. And travel over the last week, according to Pinterest, has grown 80% for an obvious reason, because ultimately everyone wants to get out of their box. But it goes into some really specific facets of these personas. Really interesting to really like nail on what's trending at the moment. How can I associate my business to it? So really interesting analysis, this. This is definitely a very expensive ad format, but it's worthwhile mentioning that they've made it available where you can kind of do a bit of a homepage takeover of Pinterest. So they call it the premier ad format. So excuse my angry children in the background. So the joys. Yeah, so now you can have like a premier ad format. So you can do the homepage takeover. So I don't expect it to be cheap, but that is one far way to get a lot of visibility. Now, we spoke about AR earlier on around the trends side of things, but Pinterest are very much ahead of the curve as far as their augmented reality goes, in particular their try-on feature. So anyone's able to kind of look at this and explore this a little bit more, but they've improved this at the moment. For the last week, they've improved this around like being able to detect skin color tones, like so accurate with some of this try-on stuff. And really this then becomes a future of like content plus commerce, where people can discover inspiration around a new product. They can try it on, interact with it in a kind of real life way, and then make that purchase, because obviously Pinterest also have the shopping function too. It's a brilliant manifestation of the future of social commerce. Definitely one to explore more if it looks relevant to you. YouTube, really short. Funnily enough, YouTube Shorts rolling out to the US. We speak about this quite frequently. YouTube Shorts is getting some incredible usage statistics at the moment. The reason it's important that it's rolled out to the US, it was only kind of beta when we were looking at this last month, and now it's in the US. I'm expecting this to come to the UK in the next month or two, hopefully. And really, it's YouTube's approach to TikTok. And considering YouTube's 2.3 billion monthly active users, I'm expecting this to carry some serious weight. So yeah, excited to see when that rolls out. Snapchat. What an unbelievable statistic this is for Snapchat. 30 times a day is the number of times an app is open per user. No other app gets that type of user retention. It's insane. So sometimes like we forget Snapchat because it doesn't get spoken about in the media as much, and it doesn't grow at the same rate, but it still has like 250 million monthly active users, so it's still absolutely massive. But I think the only thing to update on Snapchat this month is once again around augmented reality. They've bought a company called Fit Analytics. If you're curious, Google Fit Analytics and you'll see what they do. The ability for you to kind of try on clothes, like mapped across, like it fits like your body perfectly as to when you're kind of doing a bit of a kind of augmented reality like try on session. It's unbelievable. I'm no fashionista, as you can probably tell from my dress sense, but like it's an incredible like signal of intent from Snapchat as to where they want to go. It's a massive acquisition for them. So they're really seeing themselves, these social platforms, they're very much going after kind of Amazon's business around with the kind of discovery, being able to help people to interact with those products and then make those purchases. So that e-commerce is what all of these platforms are very much about. So final one, TikTok. Actually, no, we've got Clubhouse after this. So TikTok, I think this is the main reason that Mark Zuckerberg has called TikTok the first serious competitor to Facebook. When we looked at the data that Luan was going through, it said Facebook's only open like, average 10 minutes time spent per app. Look at that, 52 minutes. And that is significant because the more people spend time on the app, the more advertising inventory there is, so more chance to serve ads, the more a platform makes. So this is absolutely significant, and that'll be the thing that's got Facebook particularly worried. And really interesting because not only do people use it a hell of a lot, the user demographic is shifting as well. So it's not like, it still skews younger, no doubt about that, but it's starting to balance out a bit as it's maturing. And as you can see, talking about the age groups, you can see that and how that age group is shifting. So actually 20 to 39-year-olds represent the biggest demographic. And other than that, it's just massive numbers. But this was interesting. Sorry for the awful slide. I pulled this out of a massive presentation, this one. So basically what this is saying is that this report analyzed 900 of the top TikTok accounts. and analyze them in terms of follower growth and number of likes, etc. And what they deduced is the accounts that posted 2 to 3 times per day did the best. I mean, creating something for 2 to 3 times per day on TikTok fills me personally with dread, because I would have no way enough material for that. But for the people that take it very seriously and major on TikTok, that's the thing that's driving growth. So it's one of those things that, if you want to do TikTok, you've got to be all in and lead on that as a strategy, as far as I'm concerned. In terms of updates, not too much to share around TikTok, but they've launched a Q&A feature, which is really useful. They've rolled this out to everyone, so people can interact with the content in a much kind of deeper, rich, more engaging way, which I like. Advertising is changing. At the moment, if you're running ads on TikTok, you can't really target anyone. It's very broad in terms of targeting on TikTok. It's to be expected, because things will evolve and mature over time. But as of April, they're rolling out more personalized ads, which is interesting, because that takes them much down the route of kind of Facebook and Insta and the usual social media kind of ads we'd expect, ads based around our previous behavior. So harnessing a lot of data and using that to service ads. So yeah, that's changing. There are some issues with passing the new terms to get this approved through the European Union. So I don't know how that affects the UK, but yeah, that will be coming soon. So on to Clubhouse. Not much to share on this one, other than they've just gone over their kind of 1-year anniversary, hit 13 million downloads, which is great. In 12 months, it's significant. They've launched a creator accelerator program, which essentially they're paying people, kind of influential individuals, a certain amount per month to create content on Clubhouse. Because that's always the issue with brand new platforms. It's about the quality of that content to keep people coming back. And that's the bit where Clubhouse have found themselves in a bit of difficulty, because when you just let other people create stuff, all you get is rooms full of people talking about cryptocurrency and Bitcoin without like some interesting, like deep subject matter expertise. So that's a bit of a challenge in terms of quality of content. And also they're 2 months away still, as they say, from launching the Android app, which is gonna put a limit on their growth. Right, how are we doing for time? We're doing all right.
12 minutes.
Brilliant. So let's summarize this, and whoever's made it this far, congratulations. 4 key trends basically out of that. Audio first social media is big, it's here to stay, but is it a product in its own right? So a product being Clubhouse, or is it actually more of a feature that's nested within Facebook, Insta, Twitter, whatever? And I think I see it personally more as a feature, because ultimately the audience size that are on these existing platforms are too big. So I think Clubhouse will continue to exist, but I personally I'm not massively favoring on them winning this in the long term. I don't know what you think about that, Luann, or whether it's controversial.
I agree. I think it's a feature. I think it's great that Clubhouse have almost proven the feature for the other platforms, as so often happens. And yeah, some people are loving Clubhouse, some people are hesitant. I'm seeing that the successes with Clubhouse come when it's integrated with the other platforms. So, how much are you seeing now on Twitter and LinkedIn and everything else? Join me on Clubhouse later. And then I'm getting in my LinkedIn inbox, great to see you in a Clubhouse chat. Can we connect? So I think the challenge of Clubhouse is, can it stand in isolation? And not right now. So they've either got a lot of work to do to stand up against the other social media platforms, or you're right, it's just a feature. The audio has been proven, and it will go into the platforms where we all have a presence already and wouldn't move away from, because that's always the biggest challenge. We tend to not move away from a platform. We add others on, and we've only got so much time and resource.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. And I mean, just it is a general rule, my kind of views on it is really positive about audio social media. That, the personal human interaction, that kind of like that more intimate connection it's able to offer through the sound of the human voice is really powerful. But for me, I'm sometimes like a broken record with this, but like for Twitter audio spaces, the thing that really jumped out to me was the improved accessibility. Not just about the fact you can get it on Android now. It's just the fact that, automatically it's subtitles and creates a transcription of what you spoke about. And that is so powerful for people being able to consume that content that may be hard of hearing, and also being able to get the transcript, which means you can repurpose that content. Yeah, so for me, that's super powerful. Rise of private communities. We've been speaking about this throughout this, which is, growth of things like Substack and Patreon, seeing LinkedIn newsletters. That was last month. Twitter have purchased Review and now rolled that out into the platform to create subscriptions. Twitter doing super follows, everything that Facebook are doing in terms of monetizing content, driving subscriptions. So that's why I think that the future is kind of more private, more kind of intimate, smaller communities that ultimately subscribe to absolutely receive more exclusive content. Maybe are we seeing a move away from like broad reach community? So you have an audience of 1,000. The majority of those are kind of disengaged or casual users, but you'll have like a hardcore of like 1,000 or 100 within that group that are more connected with you, and they'll want to subscribe to something exclusive. So that's a really interesting trend to watch. Any thoughts on that one, Luann, before we go into the last bit?
I think we've talked about newsletters, and I think you're right. I do still have this nervousness about moving newsletters to be in the domain of a social platform that I don't have control over. But for me, marketing has always been about one-to-one and not throwing mud at a wall and hoping something sticks. So the more that we can move into quality conversations, the better. Nice.
I'm with you on that. Trend 3, values-based communication. I think we talk about this fairly regularly, but I saw the statistic this month and I wanted to call it out. The source is there. 71% of consumers prefer buying from brands that align with their values. This kind of talks to your point about like one-to-one connections or smaller, more focused communication. People buy from people that they like, that they identify with. And I think it's a really encouraging thing, especially for smaller businesses that really can kind of humanize and personalize their brand and stand for something.
I think it's no longer a nice to have, is it? It's no longer a, tick the box, or, we do eco-friendly stuff or things like that. And I think it's been interesting how actually it's become more important during the last 12 months about how people feel about the organizations and how they've supported each other and all those kind of nice things, the importance of having strong values and how people are treated, and the emotional connection has actually been more important than ever before, and will continue as well.
Yeah, 100% with you on that.
Yeah.
And I think we've seen this throughout everything we've gone through today. Social is moving from a nature of like, we use social to distribute our content, and it's a place to kind of distribute and pull people back to something. It's that's still something we should absolutely do, but the way that social channels are thinking about it is like they're moving slowly away from like distributing content, from like, or being a platform to allow people to distribute content, to like how do people monetize that content, spend more time on that platform. So I think that's just, as we start to notice those shifts. Nothing like we need to do anything about that in the immediate term, but it's definitely a direction of travel. So Luann, this is your thing.
Yes, I have a very quick, it's a 10-minute ask of you. Some of you, if we've been connected, you may be aware that 12 months ago, I started a research study with Warwick Business School around the use of social media in UK SMEs. We're now 12 months on from the first collection of data. So if anyone is a marketer in the UK, in an SME up to 250 employees, if you wouldn't mind spending 10 minutes completing my research survey, that would be hugely valuable. And I have already promised Andy that the first release of the stats will be in one of these future webinars. I don't have a date on that yet, but if you could help me with the survey, we will also be sharing those stats with you later on.
Awesome. I need to put that link in the chat then. But otherwise, congratulations for making it this far. So I'm going to stop sharing. That is brilliant. So I'm going to go ahead and pop that link in.
Oh, I've done it. I've done it for you. I've done it. I've got just a few questions, because I love the way that actually there's not so many questions for us, because you're all answering each other, which is absolutely brilliant. I had to scroll through the chat while Andy was doing the last set of slides. A lot of love for Reddit that we started off with. We don't normally talk about that, so maybe we need to talk about it more, particularly because some of you were sharing that there's a huge value in there for social media listening, and a couple of you were sharing that it's really good for lead generation as well. So definitely think we need to come back and talk more about that. This is kind of my topic area, but LinkedIn, there was a few questions on that. LinkedIn newsletters, yes, it is a feature they're still rolling out. You probably won't even get a notification. if you have the feature. You go to articles and it will suddenly say, do you want to publish a newsletter? It really isn't anything different from creating an article, which looks like a Word document. It just means that people can subscribe to it so they get notified, and newsletters go into people's email inboxes of the email address that's connected with their LinkedIn account. Apart from that, it is not anything different from creating an article, but you can build your subscribers that way. The same with the My Company and the product features we're talking about on LinkedIn. Some pages have got them rolled out, some haven't. They tend to go to the US first, then the UK. Again, you just have to go and look for them. You never get a nice, you have a new feature notification. One question that has come up, which I thought was a great question about trying to reach people on LinkedIn. My biggest tip for this is when you look at their LinkedIn profile, there is an activity box. So when you're halfway down their LinkedIn profile, there's a box that basically will show you what they're liking, what they're commenting on, and what they're sharing. If you do not see that box, they are not active on LinkedIn. And therefore, you're not going to be able to reach them if they're not active on LinkedIn. You can't make them. So you basically need, if they haven't got that activity box to show that they are using the platform, engaging with people, you need to find somewhere else where they are. Do you know if LinkedIn newsletter allows images, screenshots? Yeah, absolutely. Like an article, like a Word document, you can embed video, you can embed links, you can add images. It's just like the back end of WordPress as well if you're creating a web page.
Isn't it good that we have someone that's a LinkedIn trainer on the session, eh?
Quite handy.
It's good to have you involved, Luann.
And it's not a question, but Andy, I wanted to pick up on Pinterest trends because I know that you love this feature. And Pinterest, for me, is almost a bit like Reddit in terms of one of those places that I'll go to do research and find things. Pinterest do some great research reports on what the current trends are. And again, I had the pleasure of listening to someone from Pinterest at a talk a couple of years ago, and he was talking about how you can use their information to guide your own activity. So the best example, and I would love this example, was that Tiffany's decided what jewelry they would feature in their Valentine's Day campaigns based on the engagement ring style that people were pinning on Pinterest. So they went and had a look into the trends on Pinterest and were like, oh, everyone's, you know, all these wannabe brides or people who want to get engaged are pinning solitaire engagement rings. That's the one that we need to advertise on Valentine's Day because these are the engagement rings that people want. So sometimes social media platforms, you don't have to be active. You don't need to be posting content. It's absolutely fine to be a lurker. Go and find the information, the insights, the trends, the patterns that you want, and use that in the places that are right for your business. Such awesome advice. Absolutely back that. And I'm going to share one last thing, is that I want to book in for next month. You've got a little book now link. So we're going to do this every single month. So the next one is, it's always the last Thursday of the month. So whatever date in April that is. So yeah, feel free to pop that in, but you'll get it in the follow-up email as well. But so thank you everyone so much for taking this time out of your afternoon. Thank you so much for making the chat such a buzzy place, such brilliant feedback. Lovely. So amazing. Well, we can go. Bang on 5 o'clock. You have chocolate brownies. You have chocolate brownies to go and eat if your children haven't eaten them already. I can tell you that. Yes. We don't know what we'll be talking about next month, but we will be back. Exactly. Thank you all so much. Thank you for your wonderful feedback. Take care, everyone. Speak soon. Bye. Bye.